Imagine this. It's 7 a.m., you're sipping coffee in your car, still groggy from last night's dinner. You had 2 glasses of wine with pasta. Nothing crazy, right? Suddenly, blue lights flash in your rearview mirror. A routine traffic stop turns into a breathalyzer test, and the officer's brow furrows. "You're over the limit," he says. Confusion hits you like a wave. You haven't had a drop since 10 p.m. How is this possible? This isn't just a worst-case scenario playing out in some midnight thriller. It's a reality that slices through the cozy myth we all cling to. The idea that alcohol has a neat, predictable timeline in our bodies. You've heard the rules of thumb. 1 hour per drink, 24 hours for a heavy night. Maybe 48 if you're being cautious. But what if those numbers are as fragile as a house of cards? What if the moment you stop counting hours, your body is still whispering secrets to every test, every cell, every part of your life you thought was safe? Let's rewind to that dinner. You felt in control. 2 glasses, spaced out, plenty of water, a full meal. By midnight, you were fine. Sharp enough to scroll through your phone, steady enough to walk up the stairs. So where did the time go wrong? Here's the first crack in the illusion. Your body doesn't measure alcohol in drinks or hours. It measures in molecules, in enzymes, in the relentless ticking of a biological clock that couldn't care less about your morning commute or that important meeting. You've probably laughed at the friend who swore they sobered up with a cold shower or black coffee. But deep down, didn't you take comfort in those myths too? The idea that alcohol is a guest who leaves promptly when told, not a squatter who overstays their welcome in your blood, your urine, even your hair. Think about it. How many times have you judged your own readiness based on a vague sense of feeling fine, without ever wondering what your liver was still processing, what your brain was still drowning in? Here's the paradox. The more you think you understand alcohol's exit strategy, the more it slips through your grasp. Blood tests, urine tests, hair follicle tests, each one tells a different story, each one with a timeline that stretches beyond the cozy limits we imagine. Did you know a single glass of wine can show up in a urine test for up to 48 hours? Or that hair follicles trap alcohol metabolites like fossils, revealing every sip you took for months. And yet we cling to the 72-hour rule like a life raft, as if 3 days could erase the chemical storm we unleashed on our bodies. But let's get personal. What if feeling sober was just your brain's desperate attempt to convince you everything's normal? While your liver is working overtime, your neurons are still swimming in ethanol, and your bloodstream is carrying traces that could ruin a job interview, a custody hearing, or worse. A moment when you thought you were safe to drive. You don't just metabolize alcohol. You wear it, carry it, hide it in places you can't even see. So here's the question that's been itching beneath the surface. If alcohol's departure isn't about how much you drank or how long you waited, then what's really going on inside you? How do genetics, gender, even the time of day you started drinking, twist the clock in ways you can't predict? And more importantly, how much of your life have you risked by trusting a myth? The truth is, the 72-hour rule isn't just wrong. It's a dangerous oversimplification of a process so complex, so intimate with your biology, that it touches every corner of your health, your decisions, and your future. By the end of this journey, you'll see alcohol not as a casual companion, but as a chemical ally that knows your body better than you do, and one that doesn't play by the rules you thought you understood. Ready to dive into the science that's been hiding in plain sight, the kind of knowledge that could change the way you raise your glass, the way you set your alarms, the way you define safe. Because the next time you think you're in control, remember that your body has a timeline of its own, and it's about to reveal just how much you've been underestimating the enemy within. To understand why your body betrays you with those unexpected traces, you need to meet the enzymes that hold the keys to your bloodstream. AD and ALD. These aren't just scientific jargon. They are the gatekeepers of how quickly ethanol morphs from the Cabernet in your glass into acetaldehyde, that toxic byproduct your liver fights like a relentless fire. Think of ADH as the first bouncer, grabbing alcohol molecules as they flood your stomach and intestines, breaking them down into acetaldehyde, a substance so dangerous, it's classified as a Group 1 carcinogen. Then ALD steps in, ideally converting that poison into harmless acetate. But here's the kicker. Your body's team of bouncers is uniquely flawed. Genetics play puppet master here. If you're one of the 30 to 50% of people of East Asian descent with an ALD2 gene variant, your ALD works at half speed, leaving acetaldehyde pooling in your cells like stagnant water. Every sip becomes a slow drip of poison, not just in the moment but for hours afterward. Even if you're not genetically predisposed, gender stacks the deck against you. Women with less body water to dilute alcohol and lower levels of stomach ADH absorb more ethanol directly into their bloodstreams. That one glass hits them harder and stays longer than it would a man of the same weight. Age piles on too. As you get older, your liver's enzyme production slows, turning what used to be a 12-hour detox into a 16-hour marathon. You might think, but I ate a huge meal before drinking. Doesn't food slow absorption? It does, but only at the start. Once alcohol hits your bloodstream, your body metabolizes it at a fixed rate, about 0.015 grams per deciliter per hour. That's roughly one standard drink every 90 minutes for an average person. No amount of coffee, cold showers, or panic-induced pacing will speed this up. Your liver can't multitask here. It's a single-lane highway, and alcohol is the semi-truck blocking traffic. So when you had those 3 cocktails in 2 hours last Friday, your body didn't catch up while you slept. It just kept chugging along, long after you'd stopped counting the hours. Now let's talk about the tests that can unravel your secrets. Blood tests are the most immediate, detecting alcohol for 6 to 24 hours. But they miss the metabolites, the molecular footprints that linger. Urine tests, the ones employers and law enforcement love, pick up those metabolites for 12 to 72 hours, sometimes longer if you're a heavy drinker. But the real wild card is hair follicle testing. Each strand traps ethyl glucuronide, ETG, a biomarker formed when alcohol binds to your hair as it grows. A single weekend of drinking can show up in a hair test for 90 days. That job you're applying for, the custody battle you're navigating. Your hair could be testifying against you months after you swore off the stuff. But the deepest betrayal isn't just about detection. It's about damage. While you're obsessing over whether you'll pass a urine test, acetaldehyde is busy wrecking your DNA. It's like a corrosive acid eating away at the lining of your liver cells, forcing them to regenerate faster than they should. A process that leads to scarring, cirrhosis, cancer. Your brain doesn't escape either. Even low levels of ethanol disrupt the balance of neurotransmitters, rewiring your synapses in ways that mimic early-stage Alzheimer's. And those morning after headaches, they're not just dehydration. They're your brain cells screaming as they try to rehydrate in a sea of residual toxins. Here's the myth-shattering truth. The 72-hour rule is a lie because it treats your body like a stopwatch, not a living, breathing system with 1,000 variables. It ignores the fact that 2 people who drink the same amount can have wildly different timelines based on whether they are male or female, genetically gifted or cursed, fasting or feasting. It pretends that sober equals safe, when your liver might still be processing enough alcohol to impair your judgment, slow your reflexes, and weaken your immune system. You've probably dismissed heavy drinking as something only for college kids or bar regulars. But the science doesn't care about your moderation. Every time you have a glass, you're triggering a cascade that your body can't shortcut. Those responsible 2 glasses at dinner, they might leave ETG in your hair for weeks, quietly elevating your risk of liver disease over time. That just one to unwind after a hard day. It could still show up in a urine test if you're tested 48 hours later, right when you're hoping to land that promotion. So why do we cling to these myths? Because the alternative is uncomfortable. Realizing that alcohol's exit from your body is a messy, personal process that defies easy rules. It's easier to count hours than to confront the fact that every sip writes a story in your cells, one that tests can read long after you've forgotten the taste. But ignoring that story doesn't make it go away. It just leaves you vulnerable to a reality that's been unfolding inside you all along. The reality that your body's timeline for alcohol has nothing to do with what's convenient, and everything to do with the biology you can't outsmart. As we dig deeper, you'll see how these mechanisms don't just affect tests or hangovers. They shape the long-term health of your organs, the clarity of your mind, and even the choices you think you're making freely. Because when alcohol lingers in your system, it's not just borrowing space. It's leaving a legacy of damage that whispers in your cells for days, weeks, even years. And that's a truth more powerful and more dangerous than any myth about hours or drinks. Here's the silent truth no one warns you about. Long after the alcohol leaves your bloodstream, it leaves a blueprint of destruction in your cells. You might wake up feeling sharp, pour your coffee, and stride into your day convinced the worst is behind you. But beneath the surface, your liver is staging a silent rebellion. Those tiny hepatocytes you never think about. They're repairing DNA frayed by acetaldehyde, stitching together mutations that could take decades to reveal themselves as cancer. Your brain, too, is a liar. Its fog lifted by sheer willpower, but its synapses still dampened. Your reaction times slower than they were last week, last month, last year. You don't notice the erosion. You're too busy trusting the mirror that tells you you're fine. This is the insidiousness of alcohol's aftermath. It weaponizes normalcy. Society feeds you myths to make its favorite vice palatable. A glass of red wine a day is good for your heart. Moderation is key, so why worry? But the science buries the lead. Even moderate drinking, defined as 1 drink a day for women, 2 for men, correlates with a 20% increased risk of breast cancer, a 15% higher chance of stroke. Those aren't just numbers. They're the odds stacked against the responsible choices you thought were safe. And that cozy belief that alcohol wears off neatly. It's a cognitive illusion, a story your brain tells itself to justify the next sip. Dopamine floods your reward centers when you drink, creating a narrative of pleasure that overshadows the reality of what's happening in your mitochondria, your DNA, your very cells. Think about the last time you had just a few at a work dinner. You woke up, maybe felt a little groggy, but powered through the day. What you didn't see was the ET-G molecules embedding themselves in your newly growing hair, a timeline of your choices that will outlast the memory of the conversation. Or the way your gut microbiome, that delicate ecosystem responsible for 70% of your immunity, was thrown off balance, leaving you more vulnerable to infections for days. Alcohol doesn't just leave traces for tests. It leaves landmines for your future self, each one ticking in a part of your body you've never learned to listen to. Here's where the danger deepens. Your body's own defenses gaslight you. As acetaldehyde builds up, your liver produces more enzymes to fight it, a process that sounds heroic until you realize it's like pouring gasoline on a smoldering fire. Chronic inflammation sets in, scar tissue begins to replace healthy cells, and suddenly moderate drinking becomes a slow march toward cirrhosis. You won't feel it until the damage is irreversible. No sharp pains, no red flags, just a gradual loss of resilience you attribute to getting older. By the time your doctor mentions fibrosis, years of responsible choices have already done their damage. And let's talk about the choices you think you're making freely. Ever noticed how a stressful day makes 1 drink turn into 2, then 3? That's not weakness. That's your brain, hijacked by alcohol's ability to suppress GABA, the neurotransmitter that keeps anxiety in check. Each sip rewires your neural pathways, creating a subtle dependency that masquerades as preference. You're not just enjoying a drink, you're training your brain to crave relief only alcohol can provide. A cycle that tightens its grip long before you notice the rope around your wrist. The cultural myths don't help. We've been sold the idea that alcohol is a social lubricant, a stress reliever, a symbol of sophistication, anything but a toxin that your body treats like a threat. How many times have you heard someone say, "I don't have a problem, I can stop anytime," while their hair follicles tell a different story? This is the ultimate cognitive bias. Believing your own moderation exempts you from the rules of biology. Your liver doesn't care about your self-control. It cares about the total load, the frequency, the way each drink adds to a burden it was never designed to carry long-term. So what do you do with this knowledge? You can't unsee the truth, but you can start by asking better questions. How does your body really process alcohol? Have you ever calculated your individual metabolism rate? Or do you still rely on generic timelines? What would happen if you treated every drink not as a casual choice, but as a chemical intervention with a ripple effect through every system in your body? The solutions aren't about fear-mongering. They are about empowerment. It's about recognizing that your body's timeline is as unique as your fingerprint, dependent on genes you can't change, habits you can adjust, and a willingness to see alcohol for what it is, not what you want it to be. In the next part, we'll dive into actionable strategies to navigate this complexity. How to estimate your true detox time, what tests really mean for your life, and how to protect yourself from the risks you can't see. But for now, let that discomfort sit with you. The next time you reach for a glass, hear it not as a toast, but as a question. What story are you letting alcohol write in your body? And is it a story you're prepared to live with? For days, for years, for the rest of your life? The answer might just change the way you drink forever.